Hello YouTube, it is Russ Strock and I am back here in my wine cellar. It is October 28th at about noon, and I am getting ready to move my winemaking project from primary fermentation into secondary fermentation. And in order to make that transition, it's a pretty big job. So what I've done is I've got everything ready now. I added these straining bags to a few large empty food grade buckets, and I'm getting ready to basically pour the must in these large these three batches and strain the must, the seeds, the skins, strain them out using these mesh bags, get basically the wine liquid, and then pour it into these 5-gallon carboys. So by the end of this, I should have those three batches of wine, blackberry on the right, and the two mulberries here in the middle and the left. I should have all the seeds and skins removed, and I should have them transferred into these three carboys. Now, in order to do that, this is where I end up sometimes making a horrible mess, but you have to basically be sort of methodical and careful about taking the crust off, straining it out, and gently squeezing the liquid through the mesh bag. You really don't want to squeeze all of the sort of debris, out of those seeds and out of the skins. So you just want to really get the liquid out, not wring it out like you would a sponge. So I'm going to go ahead, stop the video, and start it again after I make a little progress. But what I'll do is I'll put on some nitrile gloves, and I'll start working at it. But the first thing I like to do is I like to actually scrape off kind of the surface, that crust, with this kitchen spaghetti strainer. And I will, I'm starting to make a mess already. I will put it in these, in these large saucepans, these kettles, and eventually that will make its way out into the garden as compost. But for now, let me go ahead and scrape the top off, and then I'll pour it into the bucket, and I'll turn the video back on. So this is what it looks like as I'm getting this crust off the top. Again, I'm not pushing all the liquid out. I'm not forcing it. It's going to go through the fine sieve yet too, after I start to pour it. But I'll just let the liquid drain, and then I'll dump the seeds and the skins here into this large kettle. I'll do this again. I'm just doing this, otherwise it makes that mesh bag just full of a whole lot of material that you need to kind of work through. If you can get the bulk of it off here, then it saves a lot of work when you pour it through that mesh bag. And that mesh bag is very fine and takes a lot of patience and effort to get the liquid to go through there. So this is all I'm doing now, is getting the obvious stuff off the top. Stop the video and I'll start again. So at this point, I have strained out as much of the crust as I can off the top of this blackberry mixture, and I'm going to just pour it into the mesh bag and into this bucket. This will be the next step of getting the seeds and the skins, and those particulates out of the must. Before I put it in those 5-gallon carboys. Oh boy, so as you can see, this is getting pretty full, right? This is going to make a mess, I think. But the bottom, not worth straining, the very bottom of this bucket, I don't know if you can see it, but it's just sort of, at this point, full of seeds and yeast. This will go into the compost bin. So right now, This is the place where there's lots of opportunity to make a massive mess. And it's when I pull this strainer bag up and around and start the process of really getting the seeds, the skins, and everything from the liquid. So I am going to turn the video off for a minute again. Otherwise, it's just going to run while you watch me slowly work this bag down, lifting it slowly. Eventually, I'll tie off the top. So I'm going to turn off the video and I'll turn it back on in a bit. Okay, I am getting close now to getting ready to pour this this filtered must into the carboy, which is just to my left. But unfortunately, this strainer bag had a bit of a hole in it, so I'm afraid that a lot of the seeds and stuff may have slipped through the bag. It also feels like I didn't capture as much as I normally do. So with that, I'm going to turn the video off and I'll flip it back on when I start to pour it. All right, so this is another one of those ideal opportunities for me to make a really, really big mess. I've got the funnel, I've got the bucket up here on a step stool full of about 6 gallons of this early wine mix, and I'm going to attempt to pour it without making a mess. So wish me luck. Here we go. You want to fill up the carboy just as far as you can, once again, to keep the oxygen at the top of the carboy very low. And I will put a CO2 lock on the top of here again, and that will begin the process of secondary fermentation. Primary fermentation is when the fruit is all mixed in with the must, and now we're going to begin secondary, and this will continue to bubble for another few days, and the wine would be ready to sample at that point. I can never resist taking a hydrometer reading at this point too. There we go, we're getting close to the top on the carboy. Another chance for a mess. All right. Oh boy, here we are. My goodness, I don't think I've ever had one come this close. Now, unfortunately, when it starts to bubble, it's going to come through the top. So I'm going to have to take a little bit of this liquid out of the carboy. But that's amazing. That is 6 gallons just about on the nose. I've never had it come that close. And the bucket is basically empty at this point. I will pour a little bit and take a reading. I didn't bring the right thing. Usually I do, but well, what we'll do is I'm going to take some of this out of this carboy, and I'm going to put it into this 5 gallon bucket. I'm sorry, this 1 gallon glass jar, because we don't have enough. We need to leave a little bit of room in the top because it's going to continue to ferment. So I'm just going to pour a little bit off into this 1 gallon jar and leave just a little space, but you don't want much room for air. That's just about perfect. And then I'll put the CO2 lock on the top of that carboy, and this jug is now ready for secondary fermentation. Whatever skins and seeds are left in there because of the hole in the bag will eventually sink. And once again, you can decant the top out, I could strain it again, but we will effectively drink the product that comes out of here in probably less than a week. Okay, back on hold for a minute. As I mentioned earlier, I always like to take a hydrometer reading at this point too, as I'm racking and starting the process of secondary fermentation. And what we want this reading to be at is around 1.03, maybe 1.02. Right now it is around 1.05. It's above 1.05. Let's see here. This is always very hard for me to read. I spin it so it doesn't stick to the sides. Yeah, it's around 1.05. It's between 1.05 and 1.06. And so we know that it's got some fermentation left to go. There's still quite a bit of sugar in there for those yeast to eat. When it's around 1.01 or so, it'll sink down into that green right in there. It'll be around 1.01. Then all the sugar's basically been consumed by the yeast. Okay, at this point we're going to go through essentially the same process that we did with the blackberries, but this time with the mulberries. I'm going to scrape this very thick layer of mulberry crust off the top, put it into my kettle over here, and all of this crust is going to end up going in my garden as compost. And I'm sure it's just going to be wonderful with all that yeast and organic material. It's basically broken down already from the yeast. So the worms will probably get a little drunk off this mixture. But I hope they don't mind. I've got another kettle here. My first kettle's already getting full. I'm always careful too about which buckets I put things in, because there's sort of really dirty, really filthy, and then there's some of the equipment only has seeds and skins on the inside, like that bag I just used is mostly dirty on the inside. So same thing with the funnel. So I have to admit, this particular batch looks a lot darker than other mulberry batches I've made, and I was a little bit concerned about the fruit quality at the beginning, because for some reason this year the early fruit on the mulberry trees came out. Some of it was desiccated and others were a little pink, but there were a lot of ripe berries mixed in too, so we could not really pick through all the desiccated and pink berries from the ripe berries. So this is really a mix of what I was able to get during that early season harvest. So once again, I'm just, with this kitchen strainer, I am just getting the big bulky stuff off the top, and there's a lot of it. The blackberries just kind of disintegrate more than the mulberries, but I'm probably getting 3 or 4 times the amount of crust off the top of here that I did compared to the blackberries. All right, I'm going to put this back on pause, and then I'm going to start the process of getting ready to pour it. All right, I'm going to be brave again. I've got my system set up where I'm going to pour this first batch of mulberry into the strainer bag and bucket, and see if I can do this without making a massive mess. This is a different style of strainer bag. I like the other one better, but it's, of course, now it's dirty from the blackberries, and it has a little hole in it, and I'm not sure what to do about that hole. Probably just throw it away and get another one, but I really like the style of that one better than this one. It fits more tightly around the top of that other bucket, and it has a different kind of material. And I don't know what it is. It's just a little bit more like a cloth, where this one is much more of a nylon material. All right, I'm going to stop pouring. As you can see, probably in this pouring bucket, there's now mostly mulberry seeds There is some liquid underneath, but you just sort of have to sacrifice a little bit of it. Then, at this point, you can see this one's not nearly as full because that mulberry crust took up so much space. My buckets on the right here, I've got two of them that are just now full of that cap. Most of it is the mulberry cap, so I may have to dump one or two of those before I do the last batch. All right, and then at this point, I will pull this up real gently, and I'll just keep working this bag till the liquid comes through and all the seeds and skins are trapped. So I'm going to go back on pause. Okay, I am just about done straining the liquid from the particles with this mesh bag on my first batch of mulberry. And there's still a little bit of liquid in here, but as I said, you don't want to really squeeze at this point, you know, the seeds and the skin too much, because right now you got most of the flavor that you're going to get out of those berries. So there's probably a pound or two of material left in this bag, and that's probably about right. So I'll put it in my sort of half clean bucket where I have items where only the inside is dirty, like the funnel and the other bag. So we'll get it in here, and there we go. And then the next step will be, just as I did on the last one, is to pour this bucket of filtered juice into another 5-gallon carboy, and I'll start the video back up when I get this set up. All right, so we're just about ready to pour this mulberry wine, now that it's been filtered, into this 6-gallon carboy. I did manage to get some blackberry wine into my right moccasin somehow, so I have to take my slippers off each time I go out of this room, because I don't want to track that juice into the carpet that's outside this room. So here we go. Wish me luck. So far, so good. You do have to be able to lift about 50 pounds or so. You know, water's almost 8 pounds per gallon, so 8 times 6 or so is 48. So we got around 45 to 50 pounds of liquid that you're pouring from this bucket into the carboy. Obviously, it gets easier as you get toward the bottom, but this looks pretty good. It looks nicely strained. That particular mesh bag didn't have any holes in it. And we'll go ahead and dump it all in. That's it. That's the bottom of the bucket. Now, I wish there was a little bit more of another half gallon or so to fill up that bucket, but it is what it is at this point. To fill up that carboy, I mean, it is what it is. But I'm going to go ahead and we'll put the CO2 lock on here, and we will now begin the process of secondary fermentation. Now that all the seeds and skins are gone, I'll add just a little bit of the spring water to this lock, and we'll see how she goes. I'm looking over at the blackberry, and that one's moving along nicely already. It's starting to bubble a little bit. All right, I'm going to take this one out of our field of view, and I'll get ready to do the last batch, which is the final mulberry. I'll put it on pause while I get that one ready. Okay, we are now on the final batch of mulberry, the second mulberry batch. And I'm going to scrape this layer of must as I did on the other two, and we will put it in my large kettle. I had to dump that kettle into one of those other buckets because I was full, and I will take that whole bucket of must, the whole bucket of the cappings, seeds and skins, out to the garden after I get this one cleaned up. One of the bigger drawbacks of making homemade wine is the amount of dishes that it makes. The wine supply stores make a cleaning solution that helps out with those carboys, because I do not have a bottle brush capable of going up and down and around inside those carboys. So there's a cleanser they sell that you just kind of shake in there with warm water. It's 1 tablespoon per gallon of warm water, and then you let it kind of dry itself, and it self-sanitizes those buckets. I do the same thing with these buckets here, but these, of course, you can get a brush in there easily enough and scrub it around. But they're looking around here. There's just a lot of dirty dishes to do, and so you just take it piece by piece, and you think about the end product, which is going to be probably around 15 gallons of really nice homemade organic wine from the berries you harvested from your own property. Some organic sugar that I have from Costco, and and really nice. I've got some labels that I made up for the bottles, and it really is a nice gift that people enjoy. And of course, I enjoy it too, sipping a glass of your own homemade wine that you labored over. So we're just about done straining the big chunks out of this batch, and then I will do the same thing that I did with the others. I see I've got to go get another mesh bag and reuse one of the buckets. So I'm going to pause the video and we'll start it back in a minute. Okay, so once again, I think I've got everything in position now. Another mesh bag, another bucket, and we're going to get ready to pour it in here. And then after it's strained, we'll put it in the carboy. I did want to mention that I think, from my experience, there's kind of a judgment call of when you take the fruit out of the must and you begin the process of secondary fermentation. In my opinion, in my experience, you don't want to leave that fruit just kind of soaking in the must after you've gotten most of the flavor and the various nutrients that come out of the fruit. You don't want to just leave it soaking in those seeds and skins, because it doesn't add anything. In fact, I think it detracts. You really don't want to get the flavor deep inside of those skins and seeds, and so you reach a point at which you want to take those out. Of course, you don't want to do it too early either, so that's why I kind of watch the level of fermentation that's underway, and I think of it as a bell-shaped curve. And you certainly want to let that peak and middle part of the bell-shaped curve kind of run their course. And as it slows down, as that fermentation starts to slow down, that's when, to me, it's a tip that, it's time to take those skins and seeds out, go through the process I am right now, and move the liquid into those carboys. So if you've been tracking these videos, you may know that my son and I pitched the yeast 7 days ago. It was Wednesday afternoon. Today is Tuesday. So the yeast didn't begin fermenting for about 24 hours. It's really started on last Thursday is when the yeast really started to be active in the evening. And the batch I'm doing now, I mentioned I didn't have the right yeast the day that we pitched it in the other two batches, so I added a package of yeast to this one a day later. So what do you have? You got, let's say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. You got about 5 days of active fermentation. And that's about right. At around 60, in my basement it's about probably 65 or 66 degrees. So if wine will ferment at a different rate depending on the temperature of the must. But this is going along nicely now. I'm going to pause the video and I'll start it back up in a minute. Okay, probably about 10 minutes or so after I poured the mixture in here, I was able to get this to the point of getting most of the liquid out. I'll put this bag back in my semi-clean bucket where just the inside of the items are dirty. It really does save on cleaning later. And now I'll prepare for the next step, which is to pour this bucket into the carboy. I sure like this step stool. It really saves on the lifting. So again, wish me luck here. This is one of those several phases where there's a great opportunity for a massive mess. I don't know if you can see on the black tarp there, I'm starting to get things pretty juiced up. That mesh bag over top a few times. My hands are wet now, so it's hard to hold this. I can see it pouring a little bit. We're doing okay though. Yeah, so it's going pretty smoothly so far, but it is hard to hold with my hands wet. I should have dried off, cleaned off a little bit after I did the mesh bag filtering. I am anxious to get a hydrometer reading on this batch of mulberry and the last one. I haven't done it yet. I know they still have a bit to go, but I get a sense of how they're coming along if I get kind of an interim reading. Of course, the hydrometer reading is measuring the amount of sugar that's in these mixtures, not alcohol directly, but you can subtract the beginning sugar amount from the end sugar amount to get your alcohol by volume. So it's pretty accurate. All right, well, about the same amount in this bucket as we did the last batch. So, all right, I'm going to pause this, clean up a little, maybe get a hydrometer reading. All right, well, I cleaned up just a little bit and I poured a bit of this filtered wine into the hydrometer. As you can see, it's in the orange section. The meniscus is in the orange section, and it's near I like to spin it so it doesn't stick. So it's kind of, I'd say, in the middle of the orange, maybe middle bottom, which is a reading of 1.05, which is just like the other one, the blackberry. So I'm going to test the mulberry batch I did first, and then I'm going to end the video. All right, here's the first batch of mulberry, and interestingly, this one here is a little farther along than the other two. And it was bubbling more so in primary fermentation than the others, but we're almost into the white. There's just a little bit of orange you can see at the top of that meniscus. So let me get a reading here. It looks like we're at 1.030. So when it gets into the green, it's probably about ready. But we're getting very close. We're at about 1.030, and this one probably will, be ready in another few days. Okay, with that, I'm going to just sort of wrap up this video. Appreciate you all sticking in there with me. I wanted to show you the entire process of getting these batches into secondary fermentation. I pushed the wrong button. I also wanted to show you kind of the end product at this point. As you can see, I've got them all now in these 6-gallon carboys, and that one on the far right is the blackberry. And if you look at the CO2 lock, it's bubbling, and you can see at the top quite a lot of frothiness. The yeast is still going. These are a little harder to see yet in the blackberry batches, but I can see that CO2 lock is also getting ready to bubble. And this is the one that I just did in it too. The CO2 lock is out of balance. So it will continue to ferment here for another few days. Hey, if you like the video, smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll keep these going. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this winemaking session.